Ethan Cole was an ordinary man living on Earth, working long hours at a small repair shop in the city. He was not rich, not powerful, and not famous, but he dreamed of finding someone special who would care for him. One night, while sitting alone in his small apartment, he decided to try something new. He signed up for a blind date through an app, hoping maybe his life would change. The profile he matched with was strange. There was no real photo, only an image of shining stars and glowing galaxies. His friends told him it was fake, that no real woman would use such a picture. But something about it pulled him, as if the stars themselves whispered his name. He smiled nervously and accepted the date, not knowing that his choice would soon take him far beyond Earth. On the evening of the date, Ethan dressed in his best shirt. It was not expensive, but he wanted to look decent. He walked to a cafe near the city center, a place filled with warm lights, soft music, and people chatting happily. His heart beat fast as he sat at a small table by the window. He checked his watch again and again, wondering if she would come. Minutes passed and Ethan started to feel embarrassed. Maybe his friends were right. Maybe it was just a trick. He thought about leaving when suddenly the door opened. A young woman entered and the whole room seemed to change. She was beautiful, not in the usual way, but in a way that made people stop breathing. Her skin had a glow like moonlight. Her eyes were bright, deep, and full of secrets. She walked with grace, every step silent yet powerful. Her hair flowed like rivers of night, and her smile lit the cafe brighter than the lamps. Every person turned to stare, and Ethan froze in his chair. The woman looked around the cafe and then fixed her eyes on him. She walked straight toward his table, and Ethan felt his legs grow weak. She sat across from him, her movements smooth and confident. "You must be Ethan," she said softly. Her voice carried warmth, but also a strange weight, as if it had echoed across endless worlds. Ethan nodded quickly, his mouth dry. "Yes." "And you must be Lyra," he said, repeating the only name the app had given him. She smiled, and for a moment Ethan felt like the world around him had melted away. The waiter arrived, but Lyra barely glanced at the menu. Instead, she studied Ethan carefully. Her eyes were searching, as if she wanted to see not only his face but his soul. Ethan shifted in his seat, nervous but curious. He had never met anyone like her. She didn't seem like a normal girl on a date. She seemed like someone carrying a secret too heavy to hide. Instead of asking about his job or hobbies, she asked unusual questions. "Do humans still fight wars on Earth?" she asked. "What do you dream about when you close your eyes?" Ethan laughed softly, unsure if she was serious. "Yes, sometimes wars happen," he said, "and my dream is simple, to find peace, maybe a family, maybe someone to share life with." Lyra's eyes softened, and for the first time she looked almost fragile. "Peace," she repeated, as if tasting the word. Ethan noticed people still staring at her, whispering behind their hands. She seemed too perfect, too different, like she did not belong in the cafe. Then the door opened again, and 3 men in black suits walked inside. They looked serious, their eyes scanning the room, their attention locked on Lyra instantly. One of them touched his ear, whispering something into a small device. Ethan frowned, feeling uneasy. Lyra noticed them too, but her face stayed calm. She leaned closer to Ethan, her voice low and urgent. "Do you trust me?" she asked. Ethan blinked, confused. "Trust you? We just met," he whispered back. But something in her eyes told him that this was not a normal date. Something far greater was happening. The men in black moved closer, their steps firm, and Ethan felt his chest tighten. Why were they coming towards their table? Why were their eyes filled with fear and respect, as if Lyra was more than just a beautiful woman? Before he could ask, the tallest man stopped at their table, bowed his head slightly, and said with a deep voice, "Your Highness, we found you." Ethan's blood ran cold. He turned to Lyra, shocked, but she only gave a faint smile, calm and unshaken. In that moment, he realized his blind date was not ordinary. She was someone powerful, someone dangerous, and someone carrying a secret larger than anything he had ever known. Lyra placed her hand gently over Ethan's. "Stay with me, Ethan," she whispered, "and I promise your life will never be the same again." The cafe grew silent, the tension sharp, and Ethan's world began to spin. What started as a blind date was about to pull him into the heart of the galaxies. The cafe had fallen into silence. Every eye was on Lyra and the 3 men in black. Ethan's heart raced. He could hear his own pulse in his ears. The tallest man kept his head bowed, calling her, "Your Highness." Ethan could not believe what he had just heard. Was this some kind of prank? Or was his date truly something beyond imagination? Lyra did not flinch. She simply gave a small nod, her face calm and regal. "You should not have followed me here," she said softly. Her voice was gentle but carried the weight of command. The men looked uneasy, almost afraid. Ethan stared at them, confused. These men, tall and strong, were treating this young woman like a queen. One of them stepped forward. "Empress, the council demands your return. It is dangerous for you to be here alone." Ethan's mouth went dry. Empress, the word echoed in his mind. His date was not only a queen, but something even greater. Lyra's eyes flickered to Ethan, then back to the men. "I am not alone," she said firmly. She placed her hand on Ethan's arm, and the contact sent shivers down his spine. The men looked at him with shock and disbelief. Ethan felt smaller than ever. The tallest man frowned. "Who is this human?" he demanded, his voice sharp like steel. Lyra's gaze turned cold. "He is under my protection," she said, "and you will treat him with respect." The men exchanged worried glances. Ethan had no idea what was happening. He only knew he was caught in something far greater than himself. The air in the cafe grew tense. Customers whispered nervously. Some started leaving. The lights flickered, as if reacting to an unseen energy. Lyra leaned close to Ethan and whispered, "You must trust me, no matter what happens next." Ethan wanted to protest, to ask questions, but her eyes silenced him. They were eyes that had seen more than any human could imagine. Then suddenly, the windows rattled. Outside, the night sky glowed with strange lights. A low hum filled the air, growing louder and louder. Ethan turned his head and froze. Hovering above the city was a massive shape, dark and gleaming. A starship, not like anything humans had built. It blotted out the stars, its size terrifying. The men stiffened, speaking quickly into their devices. "They've found us," one whispered. Lyra's face hardened. She stood gracefully, pulling Ethan up with her. "We must go," she said. "Now." Ethan stumbled after her, fear and curiosity mixing inside him. They rushed out of the cafe into the street. People were pointing at the sky, screaming. Phones were raised, capturing videos, but none of them could understand what they were seeing. For Ethan, the sight was overwhelming. A ship so large it made skyscrapers look like toys. Its hull shimmered with strange lights, its edges glowing with alien symbols. Lyra pressed a small device on her wrist, and suddenly a sleek shuttle descended from the massive ship, its surface smooth and silver, glowing faintly. The crowd asked as it landed silently in the middle of the street. Ethan felt frozen, his feet refusing to move. This was unreal. It felt like a dream. Lyra tightened her grip on his arm. "Ethan, you have to trust me," she said again, her voice steady even as chaos swirled around them. "If you stay, you will die. If you come, your life will never be the same." Ethan's mind screamed at him to run, to escape, but something in her voice kept him rooted. The shuttle's door slid open with a hiss. A soft blue light spilled out. Lyra stepped forward, pulling him along. Behind them, the men in black shouted orders, trying to form a protective circle, but Ethan barely heard them. His whole world was collapsing and rebuilding at the same time. Inside the shuttle, the air felt different, clean and sharp. The walls glowed with gentle light. Symbols shifted across screens he could not understand. The door closed behind them, sealing out the chaos of Earth. Ethan stumbled into a seat, gasping. What is going on?" he whispered. Lyra sat across from him, her posture straight and proud. For the first time, her mask of calm seemed to falter. "Ethan, there is much you do not know," she said softly. "I am not only Lyra. I am the Empress of 3 Galaxies. My enemies have followed me even here. I came to Earth in secret, to escape the weight of my crown, to find something real." Ethan shook his head, struggling to breathe. 3 galaxies? He whispered. "That's impossible. No one can rule something that big." Lyra's eyes held his, calm but firm. "And yet I do," she replied. "And now you are part of my world." The shuttle shook violently, alarms ringing. A voice spoke in an alien language, urgent and sharp. Lyra stood quickly, her eyes blazing. They are attacking, she said. Hold on. Ethan clutched the seat as the shuttle shot upward. The city below vanished. Earth shrinking fast, the massive enemy ship loomed larger, its weapons glowing red. Ethan's stomach dropped as beams of light tore across the sky. He had wanted a sigh, imple date, but now he was flying into a galactic war. As the shuttle sped toward the stars, Ethan's fear mixed with wonder. Lyra stood tall, her hair flowing in the strange light. She looked like both a goddess and a warrior, and in that moment, Ethan realized one thing clearly. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to the stars, and to her, the shuttle shook violently as beams of burning light streaked across the dark sky. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. He had never even flown on an airplane beyond Earth's atmosphere, and now he was inside a ship dodging weapons fired from a vessel the size of a city. The walls trembled, alarms flashed red, and the sound of metal groaning filled the cabin. Lyra stood calmly, her hands moving across glowing symbols on a panel. Her voice was steady, commanding. She spoke in a language Ethan could not understand, sharp and flowing like music mixed with thunder. At once, the shuttle's engines roared louder, sending them spinning upward through the clouds. The stars grew closer, and Earth fell away beneath them. Ethan pressed his face against the window, his breath fogging the glass. Below, the city lights looked like tiny sparks. The enormous black warship still hovered above the planet, its weapons glowing, its shadow stretched across entire districts. People on Earth were screaming, filming, not realizing they had just witnessed proof of alien life. A beam of light shot toward them. The shuttle lurched. Ethan slammed against his seat, pain jolting through him. He gripped the armrest, knuckles white. "We're going to die," he muttered. Lyra turned sharply, her eyes blazing. "Not today," she said firmly. With a gesture, she activated something. The shuttle's hull shimmered, suddenly cloaked in a glowing shield. The next beam struck but scattered like rain against glass. Ethan gasped in disbelief. The technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever built. Lyra did not even flinch. Suddenly, a voice echoed inside the shuttle, translated into English through the ship's systems. "Surrender, Empress. Your time has ended." The voice was deep, cruel, filled with hatred. Ethan shivered. He realized someone out there wanted her dead badly enough to chase her across galaxies. Lyra's jaw tightened. "They are rebels," she said to Ethan, her voice low but fierce. "They would destroy everything I built. They think I am weak because I chose to walk among your people, but they will learn their mistake." Before Ethan could reply, the shuttle burst free of Earth's atmosphere. The darkness of space opened before them, endless and terrifying. Stars stretched in every direction, beautiful and cold. But there was no time to admire it. The enemy warship was still behind them, and more blips appeared on the radar, smaller ships breaking off, hunting them. Ethan's chest felt tight. "We can't fight them. There's too many," he said. His voice cracked with fear. Lyra turned, her gaze steady and unshaken. "We are not alone," she whispered. The stars ahead shifted, and then Ethan saw them. Giants moving out of the darkness, shapes larger than mountains, dozens of them. A fleet of massive ships appeared, each bristling with cannons, their hulls shining like silver suns. They moved in perfect formation, disciplined and powerful. Ethan's eyes widened in awe. He had never imagined ships like these. Are those yours?" he whispered. Lyra nodded, her face finally softening for a moment. "My fleet," she said. "They have waited in the shadows for my call." The fleet spread out, forming a protective wall around the shuttle. The enemy ships hesitated, their formation breaking, and then, with a single command from Lyra, beams of light brighter than suns erupted from her warships. The void of space exploded with fire. Enemy vessels shattered one by one, fragments spinning into the dark. Ethan clutched his seat, unable to believe what he was seeing. One moment he was sitting in a cafe waiting for a date, the next he was in the middle of a galactic battle. His mind struggled to keep up, but his eyes never left Lyra. She was radiant, her hair glowing in the strange light, her eyes fierce, commanding fleets as if it was nothing. "Why me?" he whispered to himself. "Why am I here?" Lyra turned as if she had heard his thoughts. She sat beside him, her hand resting lightly on his. "Because you are not like the others," she said softly. "I have armies. I have power. But I came to Earth searching for something I cannot command, something I cannot conquer. A heart that sees me as more than a crown." Ethan stared at her. speechless. Outside, her ships tore through the enemy lines, explosions painting the void in colors he had never dreamed of. But inside, her words shook him more than the battle. He had never been special, never important. Yet here she was, telling him she needed him. Another blast shook the shuttle, dragging Ethan back to reality. The last of the enemy ships fled, their warship retreating into the dark. Lyra's fleet did not chase. Instead, they surrounded the shuttle, guiding it safely into the hangar of the largest ship. Its size was staggering, big enough to hold entire cities within its hull. The shuttle landed smoothly, the doors sliding open. A rush of alien air greeted them, cold and metallic. Soldiers lined the hangar, tall and armored, their weapons glowing. They dropped to one knee as Lyra stepped out, voices echoing together. Long live the Empress. Ethan followed hesitantly, his legs weak. The soldier's eyes flicked toward him, confused, suspicious. Lyra raised her hand, silencing them. "This man is under my protection," she declared. Her voice thundered across the chamber. Ethan felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. He had wanted a simple date, maybe dinner and laughter. Now he was standing beside the ruler of 3 galaxies, surrounded by warriors who looked at him like an intruder. His heart raced, fear and wonder colliding, but one truth burned in his mind. There was no going back. The blind date was over, and his destiny had just begun. The hangar doors closed behind them, sealing away the view of Earth. Ethan stood frozen, surrounded by towering soldiers in shining armor. Their helmets gleamed under the pale blue lights, and their eyes burned with suspicion as they stared at him. Lyra walked with grace, her long cloak trailing like starlight. Every soldier bowed low, their voices echoing together. "Long live the Empress." Ethan's breath caught. The words hit him with strange weight. His date, the woman he had nervously waited for at a cafe, was not just royalty. She was a ruler worshipped by armies and feared by enemies. He felt small, like a speck of dust floating inside a storm. Lyra turned to him, her expression calm but her eyes sharp. "Do not be afraid," she said softly. "No harm will come to you as long as I stand." Ethan tried to speak, but his throat tightened. He had questions piling inside him, questions so heavy they almost crushed his chest. Before he could ask, a tall man in a silver robe stepped forward. His hair was white, his face stern. He bowed before Lyra but did not hide the disapproval in his eyes. "Your Majesty," he said, "why have you brought a human here to the heart of our fleet?" His voice was loud, filled with judgment. "This is reckless, dangerous, and against every law of the Empire." The soldiers murmured, their voices like thunder rolling in the vast chamber. Ethan's stomach twisted. He felt their anger pressing down on him. He did not belong here. He was just an ordinary man. Lyra raised her hand, and the chamber fell silent. "This human is under my protection," she declared. "He is not a threat. He is chosen." The word echoed like a blade through the hangar. Chosen. The soldiers stiffened. The robed man's eyes narrowed. Ethan's heart raced. What did she mean? Chosen. Lyra motioned for Ethan to follow, and his legs trembled, he obeyed. They left the hangar and entered a vast corridor lined with glowing walls. The floor shimmered beneath their steps. Outside the transparent panels, stars drifted like diamonds scattered across the void. Ethan had never felt so small, so far from home. They entered a grand chamber, its ceiling stretching higher than any cathedral. A massive holographic map floated in the center, showing endless galaxies, swirling and alive. Ethan's eyes widened. He saw countless stars marked with symbols, fleets moving across the map like glowing arrows. Lyra stepped closer to the map, her face lit by its glow. "Ethan," she said, her voice steady, "I did not come to Earth by accident. I came because I needed to escape. I needed to remember what it means to live as a person, not as a throne." She turned to him, her eyes burning with truth. "I am Empress of 3 galaxies. Millions of worlds bow to me, but I am hunted every day. My enemies will stop at nothing to end my reign." Ethan swallowed hard. "And now I'm in the middle of it," he whispered. His voice shook. Lyra stepped closer, her presence overwhelming yet strangely comforting. "Yes," she said, "but you are not here by mistake. Do you know why I chose you?" Ethan shook his head quickly. "I don't understand," he said. Lyra smiled faintly. "Because you looked at me as a woman, not as a crown. You spoke of peace, of family, not of power. In a galaxy filled with lies and greed, you were honest. You were real. Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at him. I'm just a mechanic from Earth, he said. I don't belong here. I can't fight wars. I can't command fleets. Lyra's eyes hardened. Sometimes the smallest voices carry the greatest truths, she said. You may not see it, but you have already changed my fate. Before Ethan could reply, the map flickered. A red symbol appeared, pulsing violently. An alarm rang through the chamber. A soldier rushed in, bowing quickly. Your Majesty, he said urgently, the rebels are regrouping. They have called for reinforcements. A fleet larger than ours approaches. They will be here within hours. Ethan felt the floor tilt beneath him. A fleet larger than this, he had already seen how massive her ships were. If something bigger was coming, the danger was unimaginable. Lyra's jaw clenched, her regal calm slipping for the first time. She turned back to Ethan. This is why you must choose, she said firmly. Stay close to me and step into a destiny beyond imagination. Or return to Earth now, safe but forgotten. Once you choose, there is no turning back. Ethan's heart hammered. He saw the fear in the soldier's eyes, the weight of an empire resting on her shoulders. He saw the endless map of galaxies, glowing like fire, and he saw her, Lyra, the woman who carried the burden of entire worlds yet looked at him like he mattered. The chamber shook as distant explosions echoed through the ship. The enemy was coming, the soldiers prepared for war, and Ethan knew his next words would decide his life. Lyra's hand reached out toward him, strong and steady. What is your answer, Ethan Cole? She asked. Her voice was both a command and a plea. Ethan looked at her hand, at the stars burning outside the glass, at the armies waiting. His choice hung in the silence, and then slowly, he reached for her hand. The ship trembled as another alarm blared through the corridors. Soldiers ran to their stations, their boots echoing against the metallic floor. The great holographic map flickered again, showing a wave of red symbols rushing toward them. The rebel fleet had arrived, larger and darker than anything Ethan had seen before. Ethan clutched the railing, his knuckles white. His heart felt like it might burst. The fleet stretched across the void like a storm of shadows, thousands of ships, their weapons glowing red. They outnumbered Lyra's forces 3-1, the very steed. Ours seemed to dim in their presence. Lyra stood tall in the center of the command chamber, her eyes locked on the map, calm, unshaken, regal. Prepare all fleets, she ordered. Her voice carried like thunder, steady and commanding. The soldiers obeyed instantly, repeating her words into their comms. Across the galaxy, her fleet responded like one living creature. Ethan could barely breathe. He had never seen such power, never imagined such danger. We can't fight them, he whispered. There's too many. Lyra's gaze shifted to him, her expression fierce. We do not run, she said. We fight. We protect what is ours. No empire survives by hiding. The floor vibrated as massive cannons deployed from the hull. Outside, ships moved into formation, their engines glowing like suns. Ethan watched from the viewing panel, his eyes wide with awe and fear. The dark void of space lit up as both sides prepared for war. Then the first strike came. A beam of crimson fire cut across the void, striking one of Lyra's ships. The explosion shook the chamber. The soldiers staggered but did not falter. Lyra raised her hand, her voice sharp. Return fire. In an instant, hundreds of beams of light burst from her fleet, blue and silver. Each blast tore through enemy ships, explosions blooming like dying stars. The battle had begun. The sound inside the chamber was deafening. Alarms, shouts, the roar of engines. Ethan pressed his back against the wall, watching chaos unfold. He was a mechanic, an ordinary man. How had he ended up in the middle of a galactic war? Lyra stood in the center like a pillar of fire, giving orders, her eyes glowing with determination. Ethan felt his fear shift into something else, admiration. She was not just a ruler, she was a warrior queen. Facing the storm with unshaken will, the rebel ships closed in, swarming like predators. More explosions rocked the fleet. And Ethan stumbled forward, grabbing the edge of the console. What can I do? He asked desperately. Lyra's eyes flickered to him, sharp and unreadable. Trust me, she said. That is all I need from you. Her words struck deep. He wanted to help, but he was powerless. Yet as he looked into her eyes, he knew she was drawing strength from him, from his presence, from his belief. The battle raged on, but something felt wrong. The enemy fleet was pressing too hard, moving with strange coordination. Then the robed advisor, the old man from before, rushed to Lyra's side. "Majesty, this is no ordinary attack," he said quickly. "They are forcing us into position. It is a trap." Lyra's jaw tightened. She scanned the map, and her eyes widened slightly. Behind the wave of red symbols, another fleet appeared, hidden until now, larger, darker, monstrous in size. Ethan's stomach dropped. He realized the first fleet was only bait. The true enemy was just arriving. The massive warship appeared out of the darkness, dwarfing even Lyra's greatest battleships. Its hull bristled with weapons, glowing like 1,000 suns. Its presence filled the void like a shadow swallowing the stars. The soldiers gasped. Fear rippled through the chamber. Ethan's chest felt like it was collapsing. "We can't win," he whispered. His voice trembling, Lyra turned to him, her eyes blazing. "We do not give them victory," she said firmly. "Not while I live." She raised her hand and gave a single command: "Release the Celestial Guard." The chamber shook as the order echoed through the ship. Outside, deep within the massive battleship's core, hidden hangars opened. From them emerged colossal vessels unlike anything Ethan had seen, sleek, shining, their wings stretching like blades of light. They moved with terrifying grace, engines burning brighter than stars. Ethan's eyes widened. "What are those?" he whispered. Lyra's voice was calm but heavy. "The Celestial Guard," she said. "My most ancient fleet, built before even your Earth had cities. They answer only to me." The Celestial Guard tore into the enemy, their weapons unleashing storms of energy. Entire squadrons of rebel ships disintegrated in moments. But the giant enemy flagship did not falter. It powered forward, its cannons charging. The light on its hull grew blinding. Lyra's soldiers panicked. "It's preparing a planet killer," one shouted. Ethan's heart nearly stopped. A weapon strong enough to destroy worlds was aimed at them. Lyra's eyes narrowed. She turned to Ethan, her voice low but fierce. "This is the truth of my life," she said. "Every day I fight to protect what I love. Every day I risk everything. But today, I will not fight alone. Today, you stand beside me." Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to deny it, to claim he was weak, but something inside him rose. He met her gaze and nodded. "I stand with you," he whispered. Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then together," she said, "we will survive the storm." The enemy flagship's weapon fired. A beam of pure destruction split the void. The chamber shook as light swallowed everything. Soldiers cried out, alarms screamed. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand, and in that instant he felt the weight of galaxies crash upon him. The battle was no longer just hers. It was his too. The beam of the planet killer tore across the void, a flood of fire brighter than 1,000 suns. For a moment, it seemed nothing could survive. The shields of Lyra's flagship screamed under the impact. The walls shook, and soldiers were thrown to the floor. Sparks rained down from the ceiling. Ethan clung to Lyra's hand, his heart frozen. The ship groaned but did not break. The shields held, barely. Blue light flickered and dimmed, but the vessel endured. Soldiers cheered in relief, yet fear lingered in their eyes. The enemy was stronger than they had ever faced, and the next strike could shatter them completely. Lyra stood tall, though. Her face had grown pale. Her eyes blazed with fire. "Prepare counterstrike," she commanded, her voice cut through the chaos, strong and unyielding. But before her soldiers could act, the robed advisor stepped forward. His voice rang across the chamber. "Majesty, this is madness. We cannot risk our Empress on the front lines, and we cannot carry this human any longer." The chamber fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned to Ethan, some filled with suspicion, others with hatred. The old man's words carried poison. "He is a weakness. He distracts you. He endangers us all. If he stays, the Empire may fall." Ethan's chest tightened. He felt their stares burning into him. He was out of place, a mechanic among warriors. He wanted to shout that he didn't ask for this, that he never wanted to be part of their war. But his voice died in his throat. Lyra's eyes hardened. "He stays," she said coldly. "He is under my protection." The advisor's face twisted with anger. "And at what cost?" he hissed. "Will you gamble the lives of billions for one human boy? The soldiers murmured, uncertainty rippling through them. The chamber felt colder. Ethan's stomach churned. He could feel their doubt. He could feel the weight of his presence crushing everything. Lyra turned to him then, her gaze softer, her voice quieter. Ethan, this is your moment. If you wish to leave, I will send you back to Earth. You will be safe. But if you choose to stay, you will share my burden, my enemies, my fate. The words cut into him like a blade. He saw the exhaustion hidden in her eyes, the loneliness of a ruler who carried galaxies on her shoulders. He saw the trust she placed in him, fragile yet unshaken. His mind screamed at him to go back, to run, to escape the fire of war. But his heart whispered something else. He remembered her smile at the cafe, the way she had listened to him speak of peace, the way she had called him chosen. Ethan's hands trembled, his voice cracked. I'm no soldier, I'm no emperor, but if you believe I matter, then I'll stay. I won't abandon you. The soldiers gasped, some scoffed, others whispered in disbelief, but Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile, a single tear glimmered in her eye. Then stand by me, Ethan Cole, she said softly, and together we will face the storm. Before another word could be spoken, alarms blared again. The enemy flagship's energy spiked. Another shot was charging, stronger than the last. Lyra turned sharply, giving orders. All ships, converge on me. Focus fire on their core. Her fleet moved like a wave, ships shifting into a deadly formation. The celestial guard spread out, wings glowing like suns. The chamber shook with the roar of engines. Outside, the void lit up as both sides unleashed their fury. Ethan pressed against the viewing glass. His breath caught at the sight. Entire squadrons clashed in burning explosions. The rebel fleet swarmed like hornets while Lyra's forces answered with storms of light. The battlefield stretched across stars, a war of gods. Yet through the chaos, the enemy flagship pressed closer, its weapon fully charged. The old advisor's voice rang out again, bitter and sharp. We cannot win. Retreat now, or we are finished. Lyra's jaw clenched. We do not retreat, she snapped. Not while they threaten what is mine. Ethan stepped forward, surprising himself. His fear burned away, replaced by something new. What if I can help? He said loudly. The soldiers turned, confused. Lyra looked at him with searching eyes. I may not know your ships, your weapons, your war, Ethan said, his voice shaking but firm. But I know machines, I know systems. If you let me near the reactor, I can give your fleet more power. I can push the shields to hold. The chamber went silent. The soldiers stared. The advisor sneered. Ridiculous! A mechanic cannot save us. Lyra raised her hand, silencing him, her eyes locked on Ethan. You would risk your life. Hey, she asked softly. Ethan nodded. I already have, he said. A long silence, then Lyra turned to her soldiers. Take him to the core, she commanded, her voice unshaken. If he says he can save us, then he will. The soldiers hesitated, then obeyed. Ethan was rushed down glowing corridors, deeper into the ship. His heart raced. Fear clawed at him, but beneath it burned a strange fire. For the first time, he was not running. He was choosing. Behind him, Lyra watched, her face unreadable. She had placed her fate, the fate of galaxies, in the hands of a single human. A gamble greater than any war. The chamber shook again as the enemy weapon reached full power. The countdown to destruction had begun, and Ethan Cole, ordinary man of Earth, now carried the weight of stars in his trembling hands. The corridors shook as Ethan was rushed toward the ship's core. Soldiers guided him quickly, their faces grim. The air smelled of smoke and burning metal. Every step echoed with the thunder of battle outside. He had never felt so small, yet never so important. The reactor chamber opened before him. A massive sphere of glowing energy pulsed at the center, its power alive, arcs of light leaping across its surface. Engineers shouted in alien languages, struggling to keep the systems from collapsing. Sparks burst from panels. Alarms screamed. Ethan ran forward, his hands trembling but his mind sharp. Machines were machines, no matter the world. He had spent years repairing broken engines on Earth. Now he faced something older, greater, but still a machine. He shouted for tools, his voice breaking but urgent. The engineers hesitated, confused, but handed him what he needed. He dove into the systems, pulling open panels, wires alive with energy. His fingers worked fast. Every second mattered. He rewired conduits, redirected power, bypassed safety locks. The reactor roared louder, glowing brighter. Sweat rolled down his face, but he did not stop. Above, the battle raged. Lyra stood on the command deck, her fleet fighting desperately, her eyes never leer. The enemy flagship, its massive cannon charged with deadly light, ready to fire again. Her soldiers looked at her, waiting for hope. She whispered to herself, "Ethan, do not fail me." The enemy weapon unleashed. A torrent of fire shot across the void. Soldiers cried out in terror. But at that exact moment, the shields of Lyra's ship flared brighter than ever. A wall of light erupted, holding against the impossible strike. The entire fleet trembled, but did not break. In the reactor chamber, Ethan screamed as the energy surged through him. His body shook, pain searing through every nerve, but he forced his hands to stay, wires sparking under his grip. The shield held because of him. He gave everything he had. Lyra's eyes widened, seeing the impossible, the human. "He did it," whispered the robed advisor. Soldiers cheered, voices filling the chamber. "The Empress stands, the fleet stands." Lyra seized the moment. Her voice thundered across comms. "All ships, fire with me." At her command, every vessel unleashed its fury. The Celestial Guard descended like blades of light. Their weapons cut through the enemy flagship, tearing into its core. Explosions ripped across its hull, fire consuming its vast body. The enemy ship broke apart, its burning remains swallowed by the dark. The rebel fleet scattered in chaos. Fleeing into the void, victory roared across the stars. On the command deck, soldiers shouted, "Long live the Empress! Victory to the Empire!" But Lyra's eyes were not on the battlefield. They were on the man in the reactor. She rushed to the chamber, her cloak trailing. Soldiers followed, but she moved faster. She burst inside and found Ethan on the floor, smoke rising from his hands. His chest rose and fell weakly, his face pale, his eyes opened slowly as she knelt beside him. "You held the stars," she whispered. Her hand cupped his face. "You saved us." All Ethan coughed, his lips trembling into a faint smile. "Guess I was useful after all," he whispered, his voice weak but steady. Lyra's heart trembled. Empress of 3 galaxies, yet now only a woman kneeling before the man who saved her throne. "No," she said softly. "You were more than useful. You were chosen." The robed advisor entered, his face pale with shame. He bowed low. "Majesty, forgive my doubt." Soldiers knelt one by one, their voices rising together. "The human stands with the Empress. The human is one of us." Lyra rose, pulling Ethan gently to his feet. Though weak, he stood, his eyes met hers, and in that moment, the noise of the fleet, the cheers of soldiers, the crackle of burning ships, all faded. Only they remained. She took his hand, holding it high before her people. "This man, Ethan Cole of Earth, is no weakness," she declared. Her voice echoed like thunder. "He is my strength. He is my chosen. He is my future." The soldiers roared, the chamber filled with voices praising both Empress and human. Ethan's heart pounded. He had come for a blind date, nervous and ordinary, and now he stood beside the ruler of galaxies, her hand in his. Lyra leaned close, her eyes soft, her words meant only for him. "From this day you are no longer alone. You are mine, my partner, my future husband." Ethan's breath caught, his lips curved into a smile. "And you," he whispered back, "are mine." The fleet's victory lights flared, stars shone brighter, and in the silence of space, an empire celebrated not only survival, but the beginning of a new era. What began as a blind date had become a legend, a human mechanic and an empress of galaxies, bound not by power or crown but by love and choice. A story that would echo across worlds. And as the fleet sailed forward into the stars, Ethan Cole knew his life would never again be ordinary. He was no longer just a man from Earth. He was the future beside the Empress of 3 galaxies.